USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at USAA.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
The Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Cloak of Invisibility. Together they make the Deathly Hallows. Together they make one Master of Death. The last will and testament of Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore.
Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living. And above all those who live without love.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are covering Chapter 33, The Prince's Tale. And this is a special episode, not only because we get The Prince's Tale, we have a brand new guest on the podcast. Yes, we're adding a new guest very late in the process, very late in Book 7, but we have Mallory with us.
Hello.
Mallory has helped us out with some Harry Potter trivia recently and expressed some hot takes about the character that is primarily discussed in this chapter. And I'm like, hey, would you want to be on? And I'm happy to have you, and I'm excited to get your thoughts on Snape and dive into everything that his story has to offer. But first, what made you a fan of Harry Potter in the first place?
Oh, well, first, thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to be here. I actually became a fan of Harry Potter later in my life than most people our age. Most people have like childhood memories, and I wasn't really a fan or really wasn't exposed to Harry Potter as a child. I got into Harry Potter when I went to college, and I stayed in dorm rooms in college. And something about Harry Potter staying in dorms I really related with. And I was like, I'm staying in a dorm. He had to stay over in a dorm. I was like, this is my thing now. And so I got really into Harry Potter in college. And then from there, my love just grew. I got the books and watched all the movies, went to the Wizarding World, all of that. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask, it's kind of a prerequisite here. What house are you?
Ravenclaw.
Hey, there we go. We're adding another Ravenclaw to the podcast. Love it. Do you have a favorite character, favorite book?
I do have favorite characters. My favorite character has always been McGonagall. However, recently I'm really into Trelawney.
Yes. Yes.
She is a great character. And then my office, I model it after her office in the tower. So I have crystal balls. I've got like fluffy pillows and stuff, stars everywhere. Very much Trelawney inspired.
I love it. I spent most of Prisoner of Azkaban defending Trelawney as a character because I think she gets way too much hate from the fandom.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little undeserved. And I think Hermione and McGonagall add to that hate because they do not like her. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic between those three characters.
Yeah. I will say Trelawney I don't like that she tells all of her students that they're going to die. I don't want to defend those actions, but I think she is a really interesting character. I think divination is cool. Yeah. I'm a fan.
We just had a lot of fun with her, too, knocking out Greyback from the Battle of Hogwarts, too, with the crystal ball. I think that was a pretty cool moment for her that I don't think many of us saw coming when we first read the series. We're like, is Trelawney really going to be an asset in this battle? And then here we go. She knocks out a major player. So you never know. But before we get into the chapter, I just want to promote our socials. You can find us on Blue Sky. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on YouTube at Hogwarts Pod. Please give us a comment. Reach out. Let us know what you guys are thinking about what we are saying. And I'm sure we'll have some hot takes in this chapter. So let us know what you think about all of it. We also have a poll on Spotify for this chapter, so please participate in those as well. They're up for a very long time, and we love seeing what you guys think. So, this chapter is a lot. It starts out with Voldy making another speech, another little monologue, which I'll read to you guys in a second because it's a very Tom Riddle type of monologue. But then we get into Snape's memories, and that's the bulk of this chapter. And when I say the bulk of this chapter, Mallory, there was 20 of these memories? I didn't think there was going to be that many. There's a lot.
A lot of memories.
But we'll get started with Voldy making his speech, and I'll just read some of it here. We get him beginning with, "You have fought valiantly. Lord Voldemort knows how to value bravery. Yet you sustained heavy losses. If you continue to resist me, you will all die, one by one. I do not wish this to happen. Every drop of magical blood spilled is a loss and a waste. Lord Voldemort is merciful. I command my forces to retreat immediately. You have 1 hour. Dispose of your dead with dignity. Treat your injured. I speak now, Harry Potter, directly to you. You have permitted your friends to die for you rather than face me yourself. I shall wait for 1 hour in the Forbidden Forest. If at the end of that hour you have not come to me, have not given yourself up, then battle recommences. This time I shall enter the fray myself, Harry Potter, and I shall find you, and I shall punish every last man, woman, and child who has tried to conceal you from me. 1 hour." How about that for an opening to a chapter of just Voldy laying it all out there? I don't know that I'm proud of it, but I do love me a good Tom Riddle monologue. I just find myself getting lost in it. And I could only imagine hearing this, because Harry describes it as bone-chilling, because it's like his voice right next to you, like right in your ear, or in your head even.
Ew.
And the dread, because obviously, how many times did he just threaten everybody? Like multiple times, he just threatened to kill everybody. And it's those veiled, merciful comments when he's like, "I'm merciful. I'll kill every one of you, but I'm merciful." What do you think?
First, I think you're right. He does elicit a lot of emotions with that. One, like fear, right? When you said that someone's right in your ear whispering, it's like, I was like, ew, do not do that. And I would hate to have Voldemort like right up against my ear and like talking to me. That's kind of gross. But I also just would feel kind of like angry about it. Angry that he's threatening all the people that I love. Like, I can definitely have a lot of compassion for everyone who's at the battle. And I'd be very scared too and anxious about what's to happen. And then also Harry Potter's friends. Like, I'd be like really upset because he's talking to Harry Potter and threatening him directly.
Multiple times. It's one of those, I think, public speaking tools when he's speaking to Harry Potter and using his name, Harry Potter, multiple times.
Yeah.
Like, if there's any doubt who I'm talking to, or who I'm addressing all of this really to, really I'm talking to you. He's eliciting the fear that he wants. He's eliciting the anxiety that he wants.
Yes.
And he's eliciting those thoughts in Harry Potter that he believes is his weakness. He starts out with, "You have suffered great losses." That's playing into Harry's fear of, they're all dying for me. We do return to the castle. The castle was unnaturally quiet. Harry notes that the flagstones of the entrance hall are stained in blood, which I feel is a relatively gruesome description that we don't often get in Harry Potter. Like, the description of blood on walls, I feel like is an interesting one. Obviously, there was, the Chamber of Secrets stuff, too, I suppose, back in Book 2.
That's where my mind immediately went when you said blood in the castle.
I think it's certainly symbolic of what he's about to literally walk into. And, the trio walk in through the entranceway, and they walk into the Great Hall. Ron and Hermione go right into the Great Hall. Harry stops at the entranceway, and he just takes in the scene, which is like a MASH unit. It's this, it's Madame Pomfrey doing triage work, which I can't imagine having to triage this.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, it's a magical war, so who knows what you're actually seeing, like, as injuries? But you'd have to be overwhelmed, especially if you're the only real healer on site that we're aware of, at least.
Right. I do have a question, and this is a tangent, so I'm
I love
sorry.
Tangents. I love tangents.
But as I was reading this chapter, I started to think about therapy, and I started to think about, we have healers, but are there wizard therapists? Because
Absolutely not.
there's a lot of trauma that just happened at Hogwarts.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna need therapy.
Yeah. It's been one of our founding beliefs here on Hogwarts Podcast that clearly wizarding therapy doesn't exist. Because you look at the vast majority of our characters, they all need it.
Oh my god,
From Lupin to Albus to Harry. Literally everybody across the board needs it. Obviously, we'll talk about a character in this chapter that could have used a heavy dose of it at multiple points in his life. So, which is not a knock. Therapy is a wonderful, wonderful thing, and it does help a lot of people.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm also a therapist myself, so that's why I'm bringing this up.
Yeah.
I understand the value of it and how important it is, and all these characters just went through a very immense trauma of being in a war and a battle, losing people they love, and that was just a tangent, but I really was curious if there were wizard therapists.
Yeah, we haven't seen any evidence of it because so many characters need it. But Madame Pomfrey, I suppose, would be your only option in this case, I suppose, for something like that. Although she is quite occupied with triaging some pretty significant injuries, like we see with Ferenz, who is injured, covered in blood, and unable to stand. Unfortunately, there is a row of dead in the middle of the hall. And the first individual that we almost see, we can't really see, is Fred. And we can't see Fred because Fred is surrounded by family. George is kneeling by his head. Molly is across his chest. And Arthur is consoling Molly while tears are running down his eyes. Hermione ends up approaching Ginny. And Ron joins Bill, Fleur, and Percy. Percy flings his arm around Ron. So I think this is an interesting thing. Well, one, we get the knowledge that George, Molly, Arthur, Bill, Fleur, Percy, Ginny, all alive. That's good to know. How did you feel about the Percy-Arthur tension? Speaking of therapy, family therapy would have been really nice. And then the reunion, and now Fred's death. That's a lot that I just threw at you.
Yeah, it's really heavy, especially for the most loved family, arguably the most loved family in the Harry Potter series, that they had to go through, a very difficult family dynamic with a son who was not part of the family unit and leaving and having two different political viewpoints and having some of that tension there that is a lot for them to go through. Truthfully, when I first read this, I just remember thinking, wow, why would she kill one of the twins? I feel so sad that that's who she decided to kill. I don't want any of the Weasleys to die, including Percy. I appreciate that there's a character arc for him, that he comes back to the family and that reunited family unit is important, but sad. I don't know. This part breaks my heart.
It definitely gets some emotions going when you kind of read this, especially Percy welcoming Ron into it by flinging an arm around. It's kind of reinforcing Percy's reintroduction to the Weasley family a little bit. And, all the past drama and all the politics stuff, you know what? That's so little in the grand scheme of things. And, we've lost a brother. And like you said, George at Fred's head, I can't imagine what George is going through.
Right.
I mean, twins. I'm not a twin, so I don't personally know that relationship. But I can imagine just being a twin, you have a crazy closeness with that individual. And then your literal partner in crime through all of it. When you're down, he makes you laugh. When he's down, you make him laugh. And then literally your partner in business going forward too is like, right. I mean, there's so many dynamics at play. Not that George at this moment is thinking about galleons, but
yeah, this death hits me hard. I would say this one and Hedwig's death, those are like the, not only like, oh man, I love this character, I feel so sad that they're gone, but also the feeling of like, okay, this means that this is an ending and they're going into a new, for lack of a better word, like chapter, right? Mm-hmm. Harry is now, I think someone very important had to die for Harry to be like, okay, I gotta go and I gotta do this thing and I have to make sure that no one else gets hurt. So I think that there needed to be, for the story to continue, like a very important death, but man, it's hard. I hate reading this part.
We're not done with this part either.
Ugh.
Because Harry looks down the line a little bit, and he sees Remus and Tonks. Pale, still, peaceful looking. And I think, I remember reading this part, and, obviously you get the Fred, and it's emotional to see the Weasleys. I remember reading this, and just like you said, why would you kill one of the Weasleys? Why would you kill both Remus and Tonks? That is, that's a lot.
See, yes, it is. But I also, if only one of them died, I almost feel like that would be worse. Like, I know that's terrible, but like, I just can't imagine like Tonks without Remus, or like Remus going on without Tonks. Mm. Like, at least like they're together if there's like a wizarding afterlife, right? Which there is. We talked like the ghosts, right? Talked about there is a wizarding afterlife, whatever that looks like. So at least like they're together. But it's still really sad, and I feel for their son. Yeah, I don't know. This isn't a fun chapter anymore to talk about. All right, I'm gonna head out. Bye.
This is definitely a downer to start the chapter on, and I think we got the indications that maybe it wasn't looking very good for Lupin early in the Battle of Hogwarts, when Aberforth has that moment of like, hey, look, I saw him dueling Dolohov, but I haven't seen him since. And that was an ominous comment. And then we see Dolohov pop up later, but we don't see Lupin, and that's another ominous moment of like, oh, maybe this didn't go well for Lupin. Personally, me being me, I would have loved to see that duel take place. Because it's hard for me to have Lupin and Tonks. At least we got to see Fred's death. We don't see how Lupin and Tonks fought in this battle. We just hear the aftermath. That they're fighting, and now we see the aftermath that they didn't make it.
Right.
And I wish we could have seen them fight for each other, fight for Harry, and fight for Teddy. And we don't really get that. Hopefully it's something we might get in the HBO show way down the road. But yeah, Remus and Tonks, I think, hit me pretty hard. And I couldn't honestly believe that Lupin died, because I have this vaulted image of him in my mind of like, he's so smart, he's so talented, he's battle hardened, he's been there, he's done that time and time and time again. So clearly he'll make it out of this one. Not so much. And then Tonks, it's unfortunate because she's so young on the other side. I mean, they're both young. Lupin is like in his mid-30s, I think, at this point.
Wow, yeah.
Everybody thinks he's like 50. He's really not. He's in like his 30s.
Yeah, I guess I think that all the adult characters are much older.
Some of them are. Like, I think Voldy is in his like 50s or 60s or something like that.
Yeah, but he doesn't. He's Voldemort.
Yeah, Tonks is in her early 20s, very young. So I mean, you think about that, and just kind of the lives snuffed a little too soon, which is unfortunate. Harry, obviously, is in the same mindset that both of us are, and can't bear to see any more of the bodies of those who have died for him. So he also can't bear to join the Weasleys and look them in the eye. So he races through the castle, every death beginning to weigh on him, and he eventually finds himself outside of the headmaster's office and uses Dumbledore as the password. The gargoyle does leap aside. He enters the headmaster's office, and all the portraits are empty, including Albus's, which is a rare thing. It's rare to walk in there and to see a bunch of blank canvases, which would be kind of surreal, honestly.
Makes sense, though.
They're obviously very much in tune with what is going on in this castle, what is going on around the wizarding world. Harry grabs the pensieve and thinks it's an escape into someone else's mind that would be a blessing.
I would love that. If I could just, like, dip my face into a little pensieve and get a little, someone else's memories. I think that would be so fun. That would be so cool. It
would be. We begin with Snape's memories. And number 1, the first memory, is a sunny day at a nearly empty playground. We get young Snape, maybe about 9 or 10 years old, behind a bush, watching 2 girls swing. Lily soars unnaturally high and lands unnaturally lightly. And then also, a side note, I love that Lily calls Petunia Toonie. Interesting little nickname.
That's cute.
Lily ends up going by the bush that Snape is hiding behind and picks up a flower and just makes it open and close at will. Petunia disapproves, but with the note of longing in her voice. Snape reveals his presence, says that Lily's oddness is because she's a witch. Says it's okay because his mom is one as well, and he happens to be a wizard. Petunia, not a fan of Snape, his home, or him spying on them, ends up taking Lily away, and Snape thinks that he has fumbled this crucial moment that he has been building up to for quite a while. And that's the end of memory number 1. What do we think about it?
I like that it gives more insight into Petunia and Lily's relationship. Definitely you see Petunia feeling some type of way about her magical sister, but also I think she's a little protective, like a sister would be. I don't fault Snape for wanting to see a girl who's like a witch and being interested, like, oh, you're magical too? Cool. Like, and being socially awkward at that age. He's probably like hesitant to approach her. But I think it's a nice little memory. I will say, Snape memory number 1, it's got my approval.
Wow, I was honestly not expecting that. You're making a face like you don't even like you saying that. But I also am okay with the memory. I think a lot of people will point to Snape behind a bush watching 2 girls swing. Not the best look.
But he's 9 or 10. Knowing a little bit about implied his family history and being like kind of a loner at home too as well, with parents who fight. Like, I think that it makes sense that he's a little hesitant to approach potential friends, right? And having some like social awkwardness. So I don't fault him. He's a child, Snape, like 9, 10 years old. I don't even fault Petunia. She's also a child. She's protective of her sister, but also like there's that jealousy there that's still there, that I like that J.K. Rowling portrayed that in Petunia. So no, I think this is a good memory.
I agree. So we get to memory number 2. And 2 children are facing each other, surrounded by trees near a riverbed. Snape explains some basic aspects of the wizarding world to Lily, like the Ministry of Magic, wands, underage magic rules, Hogwarts, things like that. Lily asks if it makes a difference that she's Muggle-born. Snape hesitates before saying, "No, doesn't make any difference." Which is a big quote from Snape, given his future that he has. But Lily asks about things at Snape's house. And Snape says the arguing has continued and his dad doesn't really like much anything. So that's an interesting insight into their relationship, that Snape has felt comfortable enough with Lily to tell her about some uncomfortable things in his household. So I think that, well, it's kind of I don't want to say a throwaway line, but it's a buried line, and I think that's an indicator of how close they have gotten. Lily asks about Dementors, and Snape reassures her that she will never run into them. She's too... And then they get interrupted. Petunia interrupts them by insulting Snape, and a branch suddenly breaks overhead, injuring Petunia. Lily assumes Snape is the one that made that happen and doesn't really believe Snape when he says, no, wasn't me. So, what do we think about memory number 2?
Yeah, I think it's because of his age. I can't fault him for any of this. Like, clearly he wants to say, no, it doesn't make any difference, but I might throw a slur at you later. But, like, I know he wants to probably say something like that. Like, that's like, hey, yeah, a lot of people hate you because you're Muggle-born, but he doesn't want to hurt her feelings. So it does show compassion that he has for her. I will say, I do have a lot of compassion for child Snape. It's not his fault that he grew up and that a lot of these issues in the wizarding world he was just subjected to. And it's not his fault that he was sorted into the evil wizard house. So sorry, Slytherins, but like that's kind of hard for kids to go through. Like, oh, you could be the brave one, you could be the smart one, or you could be like the evil one.
Well, not only did he get sorted, well, we'll get to his sorting in a little later, but yeah. It's an interesting time.
Yeah, so like I think it's not his fault with the state of the world, and he's trying to show her kindness. I think he appreciates that she makes him feel less alone. Because I'm sure at that age he must have felt so alone. So I do have a lot of compassion for child Snape.
Do you think that his reply of no, being Muggleborn doesn't make any difference? Do you think it's genuine? That he actually believes that? Or do you think he has a crush on Lily and he just wants to make her feel good?
Yeah, I think he, more than a crush, I think he genuinely cares about her and doesn't want to hurt her feelings. I think there is some kindness there. But yeah, you're right. He does have a crush on her. He doesn't want to like upset her. Yeah. So no, I think he knows like, yeah, it makes a difference.
So I don't know. We don't know, I guess, what exactly Snape's relationship with his witch mother is. We know it's not great. We know the relationship's not great. But how much has she imparted on him about the magical world? Obviously, some basic stuff he's very familiar with. But has she also passed down some of her own biases and her own feelings and thoughts on certain types of people? Or has Snape seen some of the magic that Lily has already been capable of doing, like flying super high and landing unnaturally lightly, or the flower petal in her hand that she's seeming to have phenomenal control over at her age, and seeing like, hey, if she is Muggleborn, she's got a lot of control over this very early. You know what I mean?
That's a really good point, that maybe that was worldview shifting for him to see a Muggle-born witch actually casting magic that he didn't think was possible for that age.
Only reason I think it might actually be genuine from him.
Okay. You know what? I do like that take. I didn't really think about that.
The hesitation might be because... So you could interpret the hesitation one of two ways. You could either interpret it as that's not his core belief and he's just saying it to please Lily. Or you could say it because that's what he's been taught by his mother and he's realizing I'm going against my mother. I don't know how much she's imparted on him. Whether it's magical world knowledge or magical world biases.
Right. And I guess that's
I just know the relationship's
yeah.
not great. That's the only thing I know.
Yeah. And I think that we know that family dynamic is potentially abusive, right? And he's going through a lot at home. And I think that's why my first initial reaction was like, he doesn't want to hurt Lily's feelings. He doesn't want to put her in a place where she's having any pain because he's in pain at home and having a lot to deal with. Yeah, so I think that's a good point, that maybe that's not what his core belief is at that age. Yeah, I'm not sure.
So we get into memory number 3. It's a short one. We get platform 9 3/4. Lily is pleading with Petunia. Lily says she can try to convince Albus to let her in. Petunia ends up calling her a freak and that she doesn't want to go. And Lily's like, really? You don't want to go? That's not exactly what you thought when you wrote to Albus to beg him to be accepted. And then it changes. So there's some insight. Harry's getting a lot here.
Yeah.
So Harry is not only getting a lot of Snape, who he thinks he has known over the last 7 years. He's also getting a lot on his mother, who he really hasn't known very much at all. He's also getting a little information on Petunia, who he thought he had known for so long. And now he's getting some recontextualizations on his beloved aunt.
Yeah. At this point, I almost have less compassion for Petunia than for Snape, because Petunia is in the Muggle world, and she could have gone to a therapist. Because I think that's rough, knowing how she turned out as an adult. But
well, there's a lot to Petunia turning out as an adult, with how Lily's future ends. Again, young, like 21 is when Lily died, James and Lily. So,
wow.
Like, Petunia has this moment when Lily's 11 at platform 9 3/4, and then 10 years later, Lily's gone.
Wow, yeah.
Like, putting that into, like, context is crazy.
Yeah. But also, this memory also shows that Lily... I want the perspective of these memories to be from Lily's perspective so badly, because I want to know how she saw that moment, because that was a very important moment in her life too. Her whole world is changing. She's going to be a witch. She's making new friends, new family, so to say, at Hogwarts. But she's losing her sister, and I think that's a very sad moment in Lily's life, and I wish that I had her perspective on all of these memories. And I'll get more into that later, but
okay.
Yeah.
We do see some of that sadness in the next memory. Number 4, we get to the Hogwarts Express. Snape finds Lily in a compartment full of rowdy boys. Snape, and by the way, she's sitting there in the corner of the compartment crying to herself, which... Clearly the boys were all up in themselves to not notice that there's a girl crying in the corner in their compartment. But that's a whole other thing. Snape says that Lily better be in Slytherin. The word Slytherin catches the attention of the boys. Crying girl does not. The word Slytherin definitely does. And we see James Potter. James insults Slytherin, suggesting he'd rather just leave Hogwarts at that point. Sirius is one of the rowdy boys in the compartment, and he admits that his whole family have been in Slytherin. And James is like, really? I thought you were cool, man. Yeah. Which Sirius does laugh at and says, hey, maybe I'll switch up the dynamic here. Maybe I'll be different. James says he wants to be in Gryffindor like his father. Snape says Gryffindor is all brawn and no brains. Sirius chips in with, so what house are you going to be in, seeing as you have neither? Zip. Oh. Solid burn from Sirius.
Burn.
I'll tell you what, James and Sirius are quick-witted. They are very quick with it. Lily interjects by taking Snape from the compartment, and the memory shifts again. What do we think?
I think that, again, they're kids, but I do think that there is some room. Like, if you see someone crying, you should be kind to them. So I think we already know that James was also very flawed, right?
He seems, I guess the implication here would be James and Sirius, you could imply, you could infer that because they were somewhat ignoring the crying girl in the corner, they were self-absorbed at a fairly young age. They were just doing their own thing, forget other people, unless you start kind of chipping in with the Slytherin stuff, which they do not like.
It's okay to be a little bit proud of yourself, to have those qualities, and I think that's why they were sorted into Gryffindor. But I think Snape is a little bit too possessive of Lily, and that it gets more and more, and it just like festers, and I think it's showing that growth of like Snape's so obsessed with Lily.
I think part of that comes with his insecurity, because he feels like he's worked hard, very hard, to develop this relationship with this person. And now he's sitting in this compartment, and I mean, the description of James that we get is he looks well cared for. He looks like he's in good shape, you know? And obviously we know this, the family that Sirius came from, which is, say what you want about them, they're at least well off. So they're both looking pretty good. And here's Snape in, you know, hand-me-down clothes that don't look good. They're mismatched. You know, I think he's feeling his insecurity, and he's seeing these maybe two extroverted, loud boys who are very much the antithesis of who he is, and he's maybe a little defensive and a little insecure, and it's coming out in a bad way. Or at least it's starting to begin to come out in a bad way. But that's where I'm kind of feeling like Snape's mindset is. Not that it's good, but I could see where it's coming from.
Right. And again, they're still children, right? They're still kids. They're still growing and learning. And there is a lot of, like I said, I have a lot of compassion for childhood Snape. Now, as we get through the memories and as he grows older, that compassion is less and less on my end, because he has a responsibility to end that generational trauma that he's gone through, right? If he's learned that all Muggleborns are bad, he is starting to see that it's not. He needs to like fix that.
Well, we get a pivotal moment in everyone's life. We get the sorting in memory number 5. Lily Evans is a Gryffindor. After about a second of the hat being on her head. So Snape is like, oh man, really? That's not going well for me right now. His one friend that he can guarantee is now polar opposites, because he is obviously going to end up in Slytherin. She joins Sirius at the Gryffindor table, recognizes who he is from the Hogwarts Express, and turns her back on him and ignores him. It is also surreal for Harry to watch Lupin, Pettigrew, and James all get sorted into Gryffindor, which is surreal. Also, a really interesting note. Snape, when he gets sorted into Slytherin, goes over to the table and is welcomed by Prefect Lucius Malfoy. Interesting.
Yeah.
So we get an early indication of Lucius literally being fairly high on the pecking order of Slytherin and Slytherins, and we'll get into the dynamics of the Slytherin house at this time, because it's interesting. This time in the Slytherin house, maybe not their best moment. Jen, our resident Slytherin, is always bemoaning the fact that there aren't any like Slytherin redemption stories, or there are very few, like very, very few, if any. And I think part of that is the time period that we are in is not Slytherin's highlight. Maybe, like, if you get out of the Voldy years, there may be more Slytherins that are redeeming.
Right.
This is a tricky period for the Slytherin house.
Right. And earlier I joked that Slytherin's the evil house. It is not. But yes, you're right. That's a good point. At this time, it's just all the Slytherins were joining a gang. Like,
I mean,
literally, they're all a violent, bad gang.
This is a very dangerous time for Slytherin. So, memory number 6 is Lily and Snape, but they're arguing in a courtyard. Snape refers to them, Lily and Snape, as best friends, which Lily confirms that they're best friends. Even calls him Sev. They're so cool with each other, she calls him Sev. I only wish Snape was still alive for Harry to have seen this. Like, could you imagine the occlumency lessons? And he gets, like, the rebound of Snape's memories, and he sees Lily calling him Sev, and then just for the rest of the year in the hallways, Harry's just like, "Hey, Sev." "What up, Sev? How we doing, Sev?" That could not have gone over well with Snape, I would imagine.
No.
But they do seem to be pretty well on, and they're also older at this point, so this is a couple years in. Lily doesn't like Snape's company, however. That's what this argument is about. She especially doesn't like Avery and Mulciber. And she notes that there was an incident with Mulciber and Mary McDonald. So there's a name for you, Mary McDonald. Snape says it was just a laugh, and Lily counters that it was dark magic. Snape comes back with, "Well, what about Potter and his friends? Especially that Lupin. There's something off about Lupin." And Lily notes that James had saved Snape from the Whomping Willow, which Snape views it very differently, and that they were saving their own skin, not his, which we can get into that back and forth. Snape says that he won't let Lily be made fool of by the big Quidditch hero who fancies her, which Lily takes exception to. "I'm sorry, you won't let me? You won't let me." Okay. Lily says that James is an arrogant toe rag and doesn't need Snape to tell her that, which then puts Snape in a much better mood, and they leave the courtyard. And that's the memory. What do we think? There's a lot to break down there. The Avery and Mulciber bit is what we just talked about with. This is a very interesting time in Slytherin House. These two obviously go on to be pretty avid Death Eaters, doing some pretty intensely dark magic things to everybody. So that's kind of what we're hinting at, is maybe another time, Lily being in Gryffindor and Snape being in Slytherin, this would work better. This is a particularly tense time.
I think that this is the part where I have a little less compassion for him, right? Because he has to know that bullying is not right. He is so angry with James and Sirius about bullying him, and he's obsessed with, why are they hiding Lupin? What's wrong with Lupin? And
which he's right about. I mean, having a werewolf in a school full of kids is not exactly the safest thing in the world. It's
not his problem.
Yeah.
Talk to the headmaster, right?
Yeah.
And then let it go. That's not his problem. He's a student. He is not. He should not be stalking them,
Could
following
use that same
them.
logic against Harry Potter for all 7 books. Not your problem. Why are you investigating this?
Yeah, Harry, just sit back, let Voldy do his thing.
So what you're really saying is Harry and Severus are very similar individuals, getting their nose into something that they should not be.
You're right. I just still think that Snape has this unhealthy obsession with other people in his class. And it's Lily, this unhealthy obsession with Lily, and that has morphed now into, who are these guys she's hanging out with? They're not me. It's weird. There's red flags there, and this, I'm assuming, happens when they're a little older.
Yeah.
So
This is maybe like year 3, maybe.
Yeah, so I think he should know right from wrong, right? He should know not to, even if he's a person who's just standing by and watching them do dark magic on Mary, that's still a huge red flag. Don't do that.
Yeah. So I've spent most of this episode, and I'll probably continue to spend most of this episode defending Snape in a lot of ways, but obviously I agree with you. The term that he won't let Lily misstep, should not have said it that way. I don't know if he meant it that way or not, but should certainly not have said it that way. Misstep. And then I think he's caught in this. Lily is my crush. I think we can clearly establish that he's romantically interested in Lily. But they're at least best friends. They've at least established a firm friendship between the two to this point in their lives. The problem is, he's in a house that is kept very much away from Gryffindor. And he also has to survive being in that house. So I feel like he's in this peer pressure mindset of, I can't lose Lily because she's my one anchor to what I want to be and what I want to have. But I spend every single day with Avery and Mulcifer and Lucius and like, just like his mother or growing up in that house, you spend enough time with people, you tend to shift towards them because that's who you're seeing every day. That's who you're with all the time. And it's really, really hard to be the odd one out. Like, can you imagine that Slytherin common room and you're not well liked? Oh man, that's clearly a dangerous place to be. You misstep once, now they're not doing this to Mary McDonald, they're doing it to you because you're the odd one. Like, oh, why don't you fall in line with what we're doing? It's a peer pressure kind of thing. And I'm not excusing Snape for obviously the path that he takes, but it's hard, man. Snape's in a real hard spot.
I agree with you that he's a victim. He's a victim of a lot of injustices and the environment that he's in. I do agree with you on that. However, he also, what we know about Snape, he's obsessive. He is very good at magic. He is very good where he invents spells, so much so that he invented a spell that cuts you until you bleed to death, which is wild. So,
maybe
yes,
that's how he fit in.
Yes, that is maybe how he fit in, but he also could defend himself if that was the case. And he needed to be a bigger person. Maybe, again, he's still in this realm of like, he's a child or he's a youth and he's still learning and growing and making mistakes, right?
I couldn't imagine being like a good Slytherin at this time. Like, if you are, and I'm not saying like there weren't any, there had to be, like we always say, just from the sheer numbers and odds, there had to be good-natured Slytherins. But if you're a good person in this house at this time, like it's got to be hard for you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, he does have to do things to help himself and to stay afloat during this time. However, there are moments where he does need to make a choice on how to be that bigger person if that's who he truly wants to be and to end that generational trauma and those issues, right? And maybe this isn't the moment that he does that, but when he's an adult, it is absolutely his responsibility to help himself and stop telling Lily what she can and can't do because she's her own person.
It's fair. Won't argue that. We get to memory number 7. The OWL memory, where Snape calls Lily a mudblood. Harry decides not to become a member of this memory because he's seen it before, and he does not like anything to do with this memory, so he's like, you know what, I'll just let this one pass by from a distance. So we go on to number 8, and Snape apologizes. He goes to the Gryffindor Tower and the portrait of the Fat Lady very late at night, and threatens to sleep outside all night until Lily comes out to speak with them. Lily is not having it. She says everyone has told her to ditch Snape and his quote-unquote Death Eater friends. So we get the first real drop of this Death Eater namology here. And Lily says they just seem to be on separate paths. And this is year 5, obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, their friendship carried quite a ways from like 9 to 10 to now they're like 14, 15. I
can't imagine from her perspective being in Gryffindor, because on the flip side of that, she is in Gryffindor and she is surrounded by, of course, she's with Sirius and James and Lupin and everyone, but there's other Gryffindor girls, there's other Gryffindor friends, but she's surrounded by people who are good role models for her and good peers. How much time is she actually dedicating to a friendship with Snape? Is Snape just thinking of her and obsessing over her because he's lost in this world, right? It's unfortunate that he's a victim to the Slytherin household at this time, but remembering this idealized version of her rather than actually her and their friendship.
Yeah. The way I view these memories, at least 1 through 8, is it starts with them growing, developing that, and then now we're getting into the part where it's breaking apart. So I think we've kind of seen growth of their, like, we've seen snapshots of their growth. Like, hey, we're friends, right? We're best friends. Yeah, Sev, of course we are. Well, as these memories get later and later, as Lily says, their paths are separating further and further and further, and I don't know if they can cross back again at this point, or have they diverged too far. So I think it's just snapshots that have shown you where they've been at, and that they were close at one point, but now not so much. But we have one last memory to get to before we get to break. We're going to take a little bit of a break here. We have memory number 9, Snape on a hilltop. Albus appears, and in this like great flash of like what they describe as almost like white lightning, where he appears on this hilltop and immediately disarms Snape. And I'm viewing this as not Albus in his prime, because he's still well after his prime at this point, but it definitely gives you a snapshot of just what kind of intimidating presence Albus Dumbledore can have when he wants to. And he clearly wanted to here, and he's like, boom.
Dumbledore's got style.
Dumbledore has style, yes. So he expects a message from Voldy. So clearly they're establishing that the relationship between Albus, Snape, and Voldy was Snape is basically just a message carrier. He's just the message boy. And Snape says, I don't have a message. I want to make a request. And Albus replies, what request could a Death Eater make of me? Again, kind of Albus on high, looking down on what he views as just dirt. Albus expresses disgust for Snape, who ends up asking for mercy for Lily in spite of the boy, or the father for that matter. And Snape says he'll give Albus anything in return for this help. And then the memory shifts. What do we think of this one?
He's definitely very desperate. He knows that the danger of going to Albus, he might be imprisoned, he doesn't know what will happen to him, but definitely desperate. The part where I just have no sympathy for. Like, hide Lily, but I don't care that the baby and the husband die. Don't care, whatever. I'm a full-fledged Death Eater right now. Snape is a Death Eater. So you know what that means? That means that he also participated in torturing muggles or mudbloods, right?
Probably.
Probably. That's not shown. That's not seen. But he definitely engaged in some very unfortunate behavior. That very, very bad behavior. So just him being a Death Eater, him being like, can you please just save this girl that I'm obsessed with, that like, I don't care about her baby, I don't care about her baby daddy, I literally don't care about any of them, just her, because for some reason I have this weird obsession with her. And that's very red flag territory.
So I have two things. One, I don't blame him for not caring a bit about James, because James put him through a lot through school.
But to kill him, he knows he's going to die.
James was not a great person to Snape. So you can't be like, Snape is all bad and James is just this great individual.
No, James isn't great either.
James is not a great person through most of Snape's schooling.
I agree with you on that.
So the idea that like he's so cold-hearted, like Snape has gone through a lot.
But he's asking to save one woman, but kill the baby and the husband.
The baby's a bit much. The baby has done nothing against you. The baby's a bit much.
Even if the man that is going to die by the hand of Voldemort is a bully or a bad person or put me through hell, you still, that's a morality issue. You can't treat a bully and like say, oh, well, they should just die. Yeah, but you're
expecting him to shed a tear for James. He's not going to shed any tears for James.
I'm not asking him to cry about it. I'm asking him, or I think he should go to, if he's going to Albus, he should say, hey, can you save this family unit? Can you save the mother, the child, and the father? You can't still just like be like, okay, kill them, whatever.
So that's all I'm saying is I don't expect Snape to shed a tear for James here in this circumstance. Again, I agree with you. The child, that's a bit much. You have nothing against the child.
Yeah.
Child's done nothing to you. You should try to save the child.
Don't kill babies.
But the other thing I wanna say here, but just before we go to break, you've used the word obsession quite a lot. And
He's obsessed with her.
Is he?
Yes.
Or does he just truly care for her? There's a difference. There is a difference between actually caring about somebody and being obsessed with them. His first real friend, his first friend in the wizarding world, his first outlet outside of his abusive home that he could have, that he could tell about something to. Like, there's a lot there as far as just they were best friends. They viewed each other as best friends. Why does it automatically have to be obsession?
It's an obsession because he doesn't care about her happiness. If you truly care about someone, if you have a childhood friend that you're like, oh, I really hope that you're happy. I want you to have the best. You know how you would be happy with a husband and a child? I'm happy for you. It's not what I would have chosen for you. I would have wanted you to love me and my greasy black hair. But I love you and I appreciate you and I want you to be happy in this relationship, right? And that's what loving and caring Snape should look like. What he is obsessive and be like, kill the baby, kill the husband. I want Lily to myself because I'm a Death Eater.
I think many people view Snape in extremes, and I don't see him that way. I see a complicated individual who's been through a lot, who's had to figure out a way to survive. And like you said earlier, he's a clever man. He does what he has to do to get through. Some of it's not good, and some of it's awful. But that's also the life he has been dealt, which is not his fault. And yes, he could have made strides to maybe patch up things with Lily or try to be a little bit better. But to fault him for every little mistake and make him out to be a horrible human being, I think is a little tough.
This chapter, I wrote as a note that the main purpose of this chapter was to explore in depth two very morally gray characters, right? Dumbledore and Snape are morally gray characters. They're not all good, they're not all bad. And the purpose of this chapter was to show Harry Potter that, like, the guy who he thought was totally bad had some good in him, and the guy who he idolized had some really questionable choices. I don't deny that there's good and bad in those characters, including Snape. What I have a problem with is that his double agent life, and as we go through what we find out in this chapter, all of the things that he did to avenge Lily's death, I don't think that makes up for all of the stuff he did as a Death Eater and who his core person is and the choices he made. I don't think that redeems him. I think that he's still mostly a bad character and not a great guy.
Whew. She's bringing heat against Snape. She does set up a Albus-Severus relationship. So we will take a little bit of a break, and then we will be back to dive into that relationship right after this.
This episode is brought to you by Heyday. Feeling stressed? Take a moment for yourself with Heyday. Stroll through rows of golden wheat, tend to cute barnyard animals, and discover the joys of a digital farm retreat. You don't have to hop in a car or catch a plane. Escape to the farm at the tap of a finger. With Heyday, you're not just tending to a farm, you're tending to yourself. Heyday. Search Heyday, that's Hay space DAY, in your favorite app store. Heyday is a free-to-play mobile game and offers optional in-app purchases and random rewards.
Before we get to our break sound, I'd like to acknowledge our friend Andy, who helps us produce our intros and our break sounds. If you want to hear more of Andy's work and like Formula One racing, check out the Outlap F1 podcast. It's your one-stop shop for Formula One news, insights, race previews, and reviews. You can find them wherever you listen to podcasts, and they even have a YouTube page. So check out Andy, Cody, John, James, and Deanna, and join them on the Outlap.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Dobby has no master. Dobby is a free elf.
All right, so we are back from break, and we have got a bunch more memories left to go. Again, I was really surprised by just how many there were, but here we go. We start with number 10 on the memory list. It's in Albus's office. Snape is going through some stuff. He's not looking too good. He's going through a rough patch. Lily and James have just died, and Voldy is now gone. And all Albus has to reassure him is that they put their faith in the wrong person, somewhat like you, Severus, with Voldy. You thought Voldy was going to be merciful. Well, how'd that work out for you? Snape is distraught at Lily's death and wishes he was also dead. Albus says, if you loved Lily Evans, if you truly loved her, help me protect her son. Snape agrees if Albus promises to never tell. And then Albus says that I shall never reveal the best of you. And he agrees. So we get this scene in Albus's office. My hot take here is actually not about Snape at all. It's actually about Albus.
Okay.
Are you on the same page with that? Or...
I don't know. What's your hot take?
Okay, so obviously Snape's going through some stuff and he's in a bad way. Albus uses this moment when Snape is at his lowest, his most depressed, his most impressionable, to force him to do his own work for him. Like, he's using this opportunity in Snape's life to manipulate him into doing something for him. Dude, like, you're not a great person either. That's super manipulative, right?
Yeah. I'm very intrigued by his compartmentalization of what he wants to get done and his ability to use people. I'm not impressed in a good way, because it is like just again, this is the part of the story where you see Albus in a worse light, right? You see that he's also a morally gray character and he's done very questionable things. But it's so intriguing to me to see how that he can just do that without any remorse and very little emotion.
So he berates Snape in the previous memory for not having any kind of feeling towards a child or to James. Albus doesn't have any kind of kindness for Snape, who's clearly going through it here. He's like, how can I use your pain against you to my advantage?
Yeah, he had a very poor relationship with Lily, and I do think it's an obsession, but in Snape's eyes, he's thinking that the love of my life just died, and I am distraught. And Albus is like, yeah, but don't die. I'm gonna use you.
Yeah. The way he even phrases it. If you loved Lily Evans, if you really loved, then help me protect her son.
Yeah.
It's just it's super manipulative by
It
Albus.
is.
And this is when one of those times. We talked about therapy at the beginning of the episode. Snape needed therapy with his family at age 9 and 10. He needed help there. He's probably needed help throughout school dealing with school bullying. He's probably needed that counselor that doesn't exist at Hogwarts.
Right.
And now he's here in potentially his lowest moment where he has no direction. His Dark Lord is gone. The person he cared for and loved and his maybe only guiding light gone. And this is when Albus is like, yep, I'm gonna use it for my own gain. Yay.
Yeah.
Every time I feel like Snape needs help in life, he just gets ping-ponged around.
Yeah. And of course I do have some sympathy for that.
Here's a question for you. Do you think the paths diverging in one of our earlier memories from Lily and Snape, them diverging at roughly year 5, 6, cemented Snape's future as a Death Eater. Him being away from Lily. Lily saying, no, we're going other directions. And maybe cutting off that friendship cemented his path forward as a Death Eater, because now he has nothing else. Now he has to go to the only group of friends he has left.
I don't think it's so final. I don't think it's so, this was the moment he became a Death Eater. I don't think it's so black and white. I think that there's moments in his life that he slowly went towards that path. I think environment plays a huge role in your behaviors and how someone acts and what they choose to do. So absolutely, he was set up for failure by joining Slytherin at this time, right? Or being sorted into Slytherin at this time, joining some Death Eaters, being away from a Gryffindor girl who, again, they had a weird relationship. I'm not condoning that, but I do think that there was some issues with his environment at that time that caused him to go on that path. But I am not blaming Lily at all. If I was her and my friend was bullying someone else using dark magic, which could mean any...
It was Mulciber.
Okay. Well, he was there.
His acquaintance
He was there, and he was like,
someone.
Good job. And then he was called out on it. He was embarrassed. So then he was like, oh, yeah? Well, you have a crush on James.
Well, that's like the hard part about being in a wizarding school is, so he counters with like, okay, but they were just having a laugh. And Lily's like, but they were using dark magic. And Snape's like, well, what about what James and Sirius do all the time? They torture me. They make it a hell to be here. They make it awful. And Lily's like, yeah, but they don't use dark magic. It's like, well, that doesn't excuse James and Sirius either. So, like, but at wizarding school, does just normal bullying, like, get outweighed by magical bullying? But they were still doing magical bullying.
Both are bad. Both are bad. Let me make this clear. Both, I do not condone James's behavior. I do not condone Sirius or Snape's behavior. I think that, to your point, Lily, it's not Lily's fault that Snape became a Death Eater. I think it was a accumulation of different moments in his life, his environment, how he was set up for failure. However, when he's an adult at this point, even when he's at his lowest, right? Lily just died. He still had choices. He had choices to make, and he chose poorly.
So you said he has choices to make, and usually he's chosen poorly. Well, he's given a choice by Albus here in this memory. If you loved her, help me protect her son. And Snape agrees. He chooses to help, even though he can't understand it, because he's like, well, why does he even need protection? Voldy's gone.
Yeah.
And Albus is like, no. Voldy will return, and I need help protecting him. So Snape agrees and just forces Albus to keep this quiet. Because he can't. Snape can't. It's not even the kid. It's like, I can't get over protecting James's son. Like, I'm protecting a Potter. Like, you can't tell anybody about this. And Albus says that I shall never reveal the best of you. So Snape is making a choice here to protect his son. So is he starting to make good choices? Has he learned in his... This is probably... He's in his 20s now.
I don't know. I don't think so, because if he's actually making good choices, if he's doing this to protect Harry, the woman that he loves, her son, then why is he bullying Harry continuously? And you can make the argue that it was all for show, or that he was like putting on this persona, right? I can see that argument, but at the end of the day, he still wasn't really doing anything to really help Harry.
This is a psychological trip that Albus has just put Snape on. And we see that psychological trip play out in the next memory. When we get to number 11, Harry Potter arrives at Hogwarts. And Snape immediately bursts into the headmaster's office and he's like, he's mediocre, he's arrogant, he's a rule breaker, attention-seeking, impertinent. He's just like his father. And Albus is just sitting there and he's like, others actually report him to be modest, likable, reasonably talented, and engaging. So there's that. Oh, by the way, keep an eye on Quirrell. Which is just like a nice little hey, Easter egg from book 1 back in the day that Dumbledore always had an eye on Quirrell from the get-go. But the psychological trip that Albus ends up putting Snape on is not only is he tasked with helping to protect Lily and James's son, Harry ends up becoming almost the exact mimic. He's a lookalike for James. So you're asking Snape, in a school setting where he was bullied for his entire school career, I guess you want to say, to help protect the kid that looks exactly like his tormentor for 7 years, or however long they were actually in Hogwarts for. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing where you're like, this little mini copy of the guy that tormented you, protect that kid for 7 years.
But he has his mother's eyes.
That's true.
So...
And it's not like Harry, again, Snape's not terribly off base with some of the stuff. Harry is a rule breaker, but, Snape does see some things that reminisce about James.
Yeah, but he praises Draco Malfoy, right? And Draco's, I would argue, is more of a character that acts like James because he bullies. So why is he so hard on the one kid that he's there to protect?
This time it's the James figure getting bullied, not the Snape figure.
Oh, wow.
That's why.
Wow, that's a good point.
Fast forward 4 years to the Yule Ball in memory number 12. Snape reports that Igor Karkaroff's mark has darkened as well. Albus asks Snape if he intends to flee like Igor does. Snape says, "No, I am not such a coward." Albus responds, "You are a braver man by far than Igor Karkaroff. Sometimes I think we sort too soon." What do we think about that line?
Oh, that's a great point, Albus. Why don't we just, not sort?
We have talked a lot about the podcast about how it's ludicrous to think that a person is only witty, smart, wise. Or they're just loyal, hardworking. No, most people are a mashup of all 4 houses.
Yes, yeah.
The idea that one person is one thing is absurd.
Yeah.
So this idea, I think this is a poignant conversation just between the two because you have Snape saying, "I'm not going to run. I'm going to stick this out." Igor is like, "I've done way too much against these Death Eaters. I have got to go. I can't show up to that. I would get killed immediately." And Snape is like, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to run." Which, it's a mirror back to when he fled Hogwarts in the Battle of Hogwarts, or right before the Battle of Hogwarts begins, and McGonagall shouts out the window at him, "Coward." And I think this now brings it back, and it's trying to recontextualize a lot of who Snape is and some of the decisions that he's made, and it's starting to... Dumbledore is trying to impart on the reader, the job I have asked Severus to do is not easy. Not many could do it. Maybe, very possibly, only one person could do this job. We do get a memory of Snape in Albus's office again. This is where a lot of these memories seem to take place. Snape is attempting to aid Albus. And the first words we get from Snape is, "Why would you put that ring on?" And Albus responds with, "I was a fool, sorely tempted." Severus asks, "What could you possibly have been tempted by?" And Albus does not respond.
Yeah.
So there's that. I think most people know what he was tempted by. He recognized the Deathly Hallows mark, and I think he wanted to bring back Ariana.
Yeah.
And this went poorly for Albus.
Yeah.
They determined that Albus has maybe a year left to live, and Severus says that this curse happens to actually strengthen over time. So maybe a year, who knows? Albus refers to Voldy's plan to have Draco murder him. This is another thing. So obviously Snape is in on these meetings too, of like, hey, Draco's a problem this year. Like, how are we going to deal with this?
Poor Draco.
Yeah. And Voldy expects Draco to fail. Snape being the next in line to take that job from Draco. And Voldy believes that Hogwarts will soon be his. So Albus is like, okay, well, this makes everything super easy. And Snape is like, I'm sorry, what?
And this is the part too where I'm like, I'm so intrigued by Albus's like response to these situations. It's wild.
Albus says, I have your word that you will do all in your power to protect the students of Hogwarts? And Snape gives a stiff nod. Albus then instructs Snape to aid Draco however he can, because obviously if Draco's still a kid and he doesn't exactly know the inner ways to like assassinate somebody, so he can be wild in his attempts and harm others in his attempt to get to me. So can we narrow this down? Albus then says, Snape, you must be the one to kill me. And he gives the reasoning so Draco's young soul won't be damaged. And Snape goes, what about my soul? Like, what about mine? And Albus says, this won't be murder. This will be a kindness that you do to an old man at the end of his life. Which, there's an interesting whole discussion you can have on death at that point. Albus says, I would prefer my death to be quick and painless, instead of Greyback or Bellatrix.
Oh, and he says, like, Bellatrix who plays with her food. Like,
they both do.
Awful.
Yeah, Greyback makes his a bloody mess.
Ugh.
And Bella likes to torture a lot. So he's pleading with Snape, like, you need to be the one to do it, because Draco's too young to have his soul split. And I don't want my death to come at either of those two assassins, because it will not be a fun death for me. This will be a torturous, painful, elongated death. And Snape nods. He accepts yet another job from Albus, which is these are big jobs. These are massive jobs. You need to be at the Dark Lord's right hand this entire time, not give yourself up, but pass all this information over. Oh, by the way, just kill me not just kill a person. Kill the greatest wizard of the age. Like, you have to have that on your conscience, that you have killed Albus Dumbledore.
No, but he said, like, hey, I'm already dying, and you're the only person who knows, so, like, can you just end my suffering, and so that way I won't be killed by Greyback or Bellatrix.
It's just a lot for Snape to have to go through, and we can talk about the idea of Snape being like, well, what about my soul?
Which, again, that makes me like him even less. Because it's like, what about your soul? You already sold out Lily and her family, and... Not
intentionally. He didn't know it was going to lead to Lily's death. But he
knew a baby was going to die.
Eventually. Yeah, when Voldy starts putting those pieces together and he's like, this is my plan.
But if it was Neville, it was fine.
I think Snape would have cared less about the Longbottoms,
Yeah, doesn't matter if it was Neville. See, what about your soul, Snape?
Well, so what they're specifically mentioning is murder is the only way to rip your soul. So when he asks that question, I have to then wonder, how many people has Snape killed? Has he? Has he actually killed anybody? Because when we get Snape earlier as a Death Eater, who's still working very much for Voldy, the image is of a message boy. Like, he's just there to carry messages back and forth between the two great wizards. That doesn't seem like a particularly...
Right.
It's not Lucius, it's not Mulciber or Avery or Dolohov. You know, it seems like you're fairly low on the pecking order. You know what I mean?
Right. That's a really good point. But I guess the one thing that I think might counter that argument is that he came up with spells and curses that can seriously, fatally injure someone.
Can, yeah.
So I think those that evidence points to maybe he really did kill someone before. And this is just, he talks about how like Harry and James is arrogant. I think he's seeing some of that in himself too. I think he's a little arrogant. I think the character of Snape is also arrogant. So I think he's like, what about me? What about my soul?
I think you've definitely seen a growth in Snape through these later memories, because he does seem to have become more confident. And I think because we see Snape early on, he's very insecure and very self-aware. And then we see him pleading with Albus, and he honestly doesn't look very intimidating. He doesn't look like the Severus Snape we know. And I think the reason for the growth in confidence in Severus, and people are probably going to disagree with this, purpose. He feels like he has a purpose, and that's being able to protect Harry and pass information from Voldy. He's feeling like he's trying to do right by at least Lily. I think it's fair to say just Lily. But I think the confidence comes with purpose. He has a sense of purpose. You could disagree with what that purpose is and the validity of it, but I think that's, for his character, I think that's where the confidence comes.
I can see that.
So we get to memory number 14. Snape asks Albus about meetings with Potter. Hey, what are you guys doing all sequestered all the time? Albus notes that Harry may look like his father, but actually, if you get to know him, he's more the nature of his mother. And Snape kind of glances by that and is more annoyed at the fact that he can't have the same info that Harry gets, which I also get that. You're asking him to put his life on the line like every day, and he can't have some info that this child gets. But Albus acknowledges the excellent work Snape does with Voldy, the extreme danger in giving info but holding back other info. That job, though, still puts him in range of Voldy, and he can't put all of his chips. Dumbledore can't put all of his chips in one basket, which is more of Albus just compartmentalizing, which you can say is a great trait, and you could say is a very negative trait, depending on how you want to look at that.
I'm just intrigued by it. I think it's very interesting to have that, to be so objective with things and not be led by that emotion. I'm almost envious of Albus at this point, right? Like, to be so like mission oriented that he's not putting his own thoughts and feelings in the way of what needs to be done or what he believes needs to be done. I'm not arguing that what he's doing is right, but I am intrigued by it.
And I feel like Albus and Voldy are so ahead of everybody else in this world that they're just playing a whole different game that's not even, that the other people aren't even aware of exists.
Yeah.
You know, and they're just, and all they're using, both of them, Albus and Voldy, all they're doing is using everybody as pawns. It's hard to believe that even Albus really actually cares about the pieces in play when he's moving them about so freely.
Right.
And we know Voldy doesn't care about the pieces in play because he puts them in harm's way all the time and does not care. But Albus uses the phrase, as we've heard from his Grindelwald days, of, it's for the greater good. This is okay because for the greater good is what I'm really doing it for. So you're saying the ends justify the means. Sometimes his means are a little questionable in their own right. And he's, again, manipulating and using an individual, which he's done throughout the series. You could say he's used Hagrid this entire time. Honestly.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with you on that. However, I am intrigued by him and his character and his ability to do that.
Oh, yeah. It's fascinating.
I think it's amazing that he can do that and also use Harry. I'm almost more shocked at that revelation in this chapter when I first read it, to realize that Dumbledore wasn't this like perfect wizard. I think I'm more shocked by that than that Snape had a crush on Harry's mom. I'm more shocked at Albus's character in this chapter.
So what you're talking about happens in memory number 15, Albus's office yet again. This is after like Snape finally put his foot down in the last memory and was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore until you finally tell me something. Snape can get away with that. Harry can't at his age, but Snape could be like, no. I'm not doing this just because you say it anymore. You got to tell me something. And Albus is like, all right. So the next memory is a detail Harry must not know until the very last moment. There will be a time when Voldy seems to fear for the life of his snake. It is this moment that you need to tell Harry. Part of Voldy lives inside Harry, which gives him the ability to speak Parseltongue, and also has the ability to open up that connection between Harry and Voldy's mind. He says, while this soul lives within Harry, Voldy cannot die. And Snape appropriately responds, I'm sorry, so the boy must die? Is what you're telling me? And Albus says, Voldy himself must do it. It's essential. And Snape goes, you have kept him alive so that he can die at the right moment. I just wanted to read a little bit of this, like, back and forth that they have. You have kept him alive so that he can die at the right moment. Don't be shocked, Severus. How many men and women have you watched die? Snape responds, lately only those whom I could not save. Snape stands up. You have used me. Dumbledore responds, meaning? I have spied for you, lied for you, put myself in mortal danger for you. Everything was supposed to be to keep Lily Potter's son safe. Now you're telling me we've been raising him like a pig for slaughter. Dumbledore responds, oh, but this is touching, Severus. Have you grown to care for the boy after all? And then Snape says, for him, no, expecto Patronum. And we get the Silver Doe, which is the callback to the Forest of Dean, where the sword of Godric Gryffindor is placed, and all of that. So it was Snape who set that up. Yeah, you don't like that interaction between the two?
No, it gives a lot of insight into what's going on.
You don't think Snape is justified in being as angry with Albus as he seems to be?
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, he's using him. I do think this is where I have the problem with, is that, like, you want to see the good in Snape. You want to see how he's growing and actually, like, starting to love Harry. But no, he does not. He does not love Harry. He only loves Lily. And this is, again, a point to, like, his obsession with Lily, that his Patronus is
So is
representative.
Tonks obsessed with Lupin?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay, but one obsession is positive and then the other one is negative. So then why?
Because it's mutual. It's consensual.
So you can't...
So Tonks and Lupin love each other, right? They had a child together.
Yep.
But Lily and Snape do not.
You can't have a loving feeling for someone that's requited?
Again, I go back to, if he actually loved her, he would have shown care for Harry. And actually, he's not upset that Harry's dying because he's a boy. He's upset that he did all this work, and for what? I can't even keep Lily's memory alive.
Which is Harry.
But he's not viewing Harry as a person. He's viewing Harry as an extension of that love of Lily. And it's that image of Lily in Snape's mind. It's not even Lily. I want this chapter to be rewritten from Lily's perspective.
Well, I mean, that would be interesting.
I want to hear what she actually thought of Snape and what she thought of James and those moments of James that we don't see from many of the memories. Maybe James had a redemption arc, too, that was very significant.
I think the James redemption arc is implied when you get Lily calling him an arrogant toe rag and then ends up marrying him. So, I mean, clearly there was some sort of flip.
You could still marry a arrogant toe rag, but...
It's true.
But I think, yes, you're right. It is implied. But I do want that from her perspective, because right now we're just getting Snape's perspective.
Well, you get the famous quote, and I think that leans a lot into what you and the vast majority of the fandom, and maybe I'm wrong in saying the vast majority of, but I'd say the majority of the fandom. Albus watches the doe leave the office, and with tears in his eyes turns back to Snape and says, "After all this time." And Snape replies with the iconic line that you either love or hate, "Always." And maybe I'm taking a more romantic approach than maybe some. But there's no way you can feel strong affection for, maybe even love for, someone else and care about them so much that you carry that through without it being a negative thing. He's clearly taken that love that he's held for Lily and used it to fuel all of these jobs that he's been doing for Albus over this time. And keep in mind, I just want to contextualize this because, again, we lose track of time in this series. But obviously, Snape meets Lily when they're about 9 or 10. School. They leave school about roughly 17. Gets caught up with the Death Eaters. That first Wizarding War takes place when they're around 21, right? And that's when James and Lily die. So Snape is about 21. So he comes to Dumbledore at 21 and says, "What can I do? I would do anything." So from 21 or so till his dying day, which I think is, again, probably in his mid-30s, he's done work for Dumbledore, for the Order of the Phoenix, for the cause. So he's technically spent far longer in the service of this love that he had for Lily than he ever did against it.
Only reason he did that service was because he felt guilty.
True.
Yeah, that was the only reason.
That's true. He does feel guilt. But as we've established in this world of Harry Potter and then the Wizarding world, one of the greatest things you can feel is true, legitimate remorse. And that's the only thing that can heal a ripped soul from murder or from death is actual, true, real remorse. And the fact that when Snape went to Albus and was like, "I can't believe she's dead, I want to die too," that's him feeling that remorse. For example, we have a case in here where, not Horcrux related specifically, but the Bloody Baron, where he kills the Grey Lady, right? And then that would technically rip your soul apart, except he then feels such remorse from it that he ends up killing himself and then wears chains in his afterlife as penance for it. Like, you get those moments of true actual remorse. So is the fact that Snape did feel guilty and had true remorse a bad thing? Or does it help that character growth? I just went on a long monologue.
Yeah, and that gives me a lot to think about. I think remorse, too, what does remorse look like? Is it, like you described in the Wizarding world, is it wearing chains and punishing yourself from the mistakes? Or is it learning from your mistakes, choosing a different path and growing through it?
Sure. For Snape, I think it would be his penance, his chains would be doing this, like putting himself in danger every day. I guess that's the subjective part, is how you view Snape's history and how you view his actions throughout his life. Because I feel like you have to, when you're judging any character, including Albus, you have to take into account their totality. Like, what have they done, good, bad, otherwise? And it all gets totaled up in the end. Like, how do you view Snape? And from what it sounds like, this chapter, it's still viewing up on the negative side for you, for Snape.
I'm sorry. I apologize to any Snape fans out there that are listening. I can't get behind what he's done and still think he's this amazing character. I think that if we talk about, again, that we're talking about the books, but if we talk about the movies, I think Alan Rickman did a wonderful job portraying Snape. I think some of the lines were changed in the movies to show Snape in a better light, but book Snape, I am not a fan. I'm so sorry. I think that he is still selfish. I think he didn't grow enough. I think that he should have been nice to Harry if he truly loved Lily. I think he could have redeemed himself in a different way.
I feel like at some point we're going to have to break down all of the Snape-Harry interactions throughout the books and really look at Snape's treatment of Harry. I think he's actually way worse than Neville, honestly.
Yeah, he threatened to kill his toad.
Yeah, I think Snape's actually worse than Neville than he is Harry, but we could break that down post-book and find that deep dive.
Yeah, because
you should come on for that, too.
Because, you know why he's worse to Neville? Because he wishes Neville was dead. Because he is a man who said it's okay if a baby dies, but just not Lily's baby.
I think that is a big part of it. I think you're right there.
Yeah, or not even Lily's baby could die, just not Lily.
Some resentment towards Neville for that, for sure. We still have a couple more memories. We have memory number 16, which is Snape's office this time, which is the headmaster's office. So it's, I guess, still Albus's office, old office, whatever. Albus, via portrait, is now instructing Snape to give the correct date of the 7 powders scene, but plant the decoy idea by confounding Mundungus. Albus is also like, hey, you're going to have to be convincing here. So you got to do some damage in this chase. You need to be here for the children. So Snape, in memory number 17, confounds Mundungus. In number 18, it's the 7 powders scene, which is Snape trailing Lupin and George. And there was a Death Eater that cut in front of Snape and was about to curse Lupin in the back. Snape missed the Death Eater targeting Lupin, but hit George. And that's how George loses the ear. In number 19, Snape is at Grimmauld Place. And you see him crying, reading a letter from Lily. That's the letter we see Harry eventually read as well. And he ended up taking the page that bore her signature. Also, he ripped a photograph that had Lily laughing in it and tossed Harry and James to the side, which is more of the more callous nature towards James and Harry, for that matter. Mallory's giving me a look. I'm going to press forward. Number 20, Phineas Nigellus reports that the trio are camping in the Forest of Dean. Phineas used the word mudblood, and Snape harshly rebukes him. Albus reminds Snape the sword must be given anonymously and under conditions of need and valor. Snape swings Albus's portrait forward and takes the sword of Gryffindor from behind it, which is just a really cool little detail that I really like.
That is cool, yeah.
And after this final memory, Harry emerges from the pensieve and the chapter is over. People are probably quick to question, like, wait, Snape's Hogwarts wasn't all that great. Kids were getting tortured in Defense Against Dark Arts classes, which are now Dark Arts classes, or the first year getting chained up, or whatever have you. Which is true, but again, it's him having to play his part on a fine line. If he's like, no, we can't be doing unforgivable curses on kids, they'd all look at him like, who are you, and why are you telling me I can't Crucio some 4th year? Where you see his influence is when we hear the news that Ginny and the DA members that were still at Hogwarts broke into his office and tried attempting to steal the Sword of Gryffindor, and their detention was to go into the Forbidden Forest with Hagrid. That's where I think you see his influence of, like, if this was the Carrows, those kids would die. Those kids would be dead. And instead, his detention was to send them into the forest with Hagrid. Okay. Like, that's not really a detention. So you see bits of his influence, but he can't be like, no, this must run as normal, because Voldy and the Death Eaters would be like, I'm sorry, why can't we have dark arts classes?
Yeah.
Why can't we do this? Really? Are you kidding me?
I could see that. That's a good point.
So, I mean, again, he's playing that part, and yes, it's him compromising some things that he probably doesn't want to do. It's a job he was tasked. And this is probably better than the alternative, which if the Carrows were running Hogwarts, oh my goodness.
I gave you a look at Snape crying and reading a letter from Lily.
Yes, you did.
And taking the page and ripping the photo.
But you didn't like that? I thought you were going to love that part.
It's weird. Like,
okay, I will.
He probably does have photos of Lily all in his office.
So I grant you that it's a weird memory. If I were to eliminate any of these memories, that would be the one. It's weird, and it doesn't need to be there, and it's odd. I'll give you that. It's also, almost like the movie. When you saw the movie and they have like Snape's memories of him going into the Potter house holding. That's a weird scene. He wasn't there. It is weird. It's a weird scene. Like that. No.
But also,
I feel icky with that.
It is weird. But also in the movie, they did show him walking over James, and I know this isn't book. It isn't in the book and everything, but like I think that's also another point of like he just doesn't care. He only cares about himself and his vision of Lily and his mission. He's very centered in his own ego, which I don't like. And he probably does have just pictures of Lily all over his room.
The Spinner's End is just some room that has all Lily pictures.
Yeah.
I think every character in this series is motivated by their own ego and their own sense of purpose and where they derive that purpose from. Whether it be questionable or fully reasonable. I think every character kind of has that background. You could say the same for Albus and Voldy and any of the teachers. McGonagall. Like, look, I've been critical of McGonagall. Everybody thinks she's, this stalwart of perfection at Hogwarts. She's had some moments where I'm like, hey, is that cool? Is that really the correct thing to be doing here? I'm not sure.
I think a lot of the way that J.K. wrote the teachers, they all have a lot of flaws, and including Trelawney. Like I love Trelawney.
I do too, but yes.
But I think that she has a lot of like insecurities and she's projecting that onto her students. So there's a lot of different ways that the teachers are bad.
It all comes down to what she said early on, therapy. So many of these characters need real therapy.
I know, and it makes me so mad. Bringing it back to Snape, it makes me so mad that he had an opportunity to end this generational trauma that he went through with his parents, with the Wizarding World. He had an real opportunity to do that with Neville, with Harry, but he really doesn't care. Like, I think that deep down, he doesn't care about the kids so much as he's doing it for Lily. And
does it matter?
I think it does.
Does it matter that he's ultimately protecting the kids? If it's for Lily or not? He's doing the job.
I think it does. I think it does matter because I think his choices would have been different as a teacher at Hogwarts before things got really bad and before this book, right? When Voldemort was just popping up here and there at the end of the school year. I think that would have made a difference if he was more present and a more respectable teacher to those kids and kind. I think, and maybe those are my values, right? Maybe that I'm projecting my values onto Snape, right? Because I think Snape is really not a great guy.
And I think that's what we do as readers a lot, is we read something and then we project our own emotions or our own belief system on some of these characters when the characters in the story might have their own purposes for doing something, or the author might have her own backgrounds as to why a character might be doing something that's completely different than either of the other two options.
Right.
And that's the beautiful thing about literature, is that you can read this chapter, I can read this chapter, and even though we've read the same words, we've interpreted them differently. And now we're having a debate of character deep dive analysis. It's a cool thing, and that's why I like the series so much. So
yeah, me too. I love Harry Potter.
So we will wrap up chapter 33 here. Let us know what you all thought about the chapter and about Snape and about Snape's background and about the Snape-Lily relationship, because I'm sure everybody has thoughts. There will be a poll on this episode on Spotify, so please participate in that to continue letting us know what you think. Find us on our socials at HogwartsAPod, and we will be back with Chapter 34 next week. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at HogwartsAPod.